Hey everyone, welcome to Fellowship of the Frugal. My name is Daniel. In today's video, I'm going to answer the question, should I do debt consolidation? I'm going to talk about what it looks like, I'm going to go through some things to look out for, and I'm also going to provide a couple of examples so you can see what I'm talking about in a real world situation to see if it makes sense for you and for your own self, that you'll know what to do and how to calculate for you if it makes sense. So as usual, if you enjoy the content, I hope you have a chance to subscribe and check out my other videos, and I look forward to seeing y'all again soon. I hope you enjoy. Alright, so in dealing with debt consolidation, it's been my experience in the banking world, having done a lot of these, that it seems like most people have kind of a limited viewpoint on it, and that's the motivation behind wanting to do this video now. So from where I'm coming from, I've seen three different reasons why people choose to do debt consolidation. One is they're trying to lower their monthly payment or increase their cash flow, either way. So if there's a big monthly payment with several different loans that add up to a higher dollar amount, in many cases you can consolidate those into one fixed term loan and lower your monthly payment. You free up some cash flow, and then that's a good thing, right? Well, it can be, but it's not always the case. Which brings up my second reason people may do a consolidation loan, and that is they're trying to save on interest. Now, if you look at interest over the course of the loan, what you have compared to what you're trying to do to consolidate them, it's important to know how to compare the two together so you know if you're actually paying more or less interest over the course of the loan. Of course, that may not be your only motivation in doing it, but it's definitely something to consider. And then the third reason that I see why people do this is really just to simplify things. There's a number of loans that are out there. You may have 4, 5, 6, and you just don't want to keep up with all of them, so you want to keep up with just one. Roll them all into one, you just have one loan, one payment, and that's it. And that's certainly a simpler way to do things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I really want to looking at all of those considerations when trying to figure out if it makes sense for you. And some other kind of random considerations to look at. One is this going to impact your credit score? I mean, I can pretty much guarantee you if you do a loan to consolidate debt, there is going to be an impact to your credit score. And I'll also look at this idea of taking the savings of a cash flow and then adding that back into the new loan to try to pay it off faster. So this is a simplified way to look at if it makes sense for you to do one. Now, for those of you that have the mathematical fortitude to stay with me, I'm going to run through a couple of examples, and one is a good one is a probably not so good one as a reason to do a debt consolidation loan, and we can both kind of judge together if this one makes good sense or not to do. And so really at this point, if you look at numbers and you glaze over, this may be a good stopping point in the video. So I'm going to go run through some examples that I think will be good to highlight what I'm talking about. So I really want to lay it out and give you the groundwork for how to determine for yourself in your own scenario if it makes sense and how to calculate it. So with that, here's the first example. Alright, so in our first example, I have 4 different loans that we're trying to consolidate and looking to see if it makes sense. The first loan in here is an auto loan for $25,000, and it's a 5-year loan and it's at 6% APR. So when you do that, your monthly payment is $483.32, and I'm assuming that 26 payments have already been made. And the remaining balance on that loan is roughly $15,000, and the remaining interest due on the loan is still $660.84. And so far, the interest paid has been $2,643.76. Now, in case you're wondering where in the world you get this information, I mean, there's plenty of amortization calculators out there, and I posted one that I use for this in the description, and there's lots of calculators that can help you do things like this, but an amortization calculator is great. And of course, by amortization, I just mean the schedule of payments to pay back a loan that you've taken out. So this auto loan is fixed. We're already a little over 2 years into it and got about 3 years left. The second thing we're paying off is a credit card. There's a balance of $10,000. Interest rate's 21%. Now, if the minimum payment on this credit card is 2% of the balance, that means our payment is starting at $200 a month. And if we follow the minimum payment rule, it would take 10 years to pay off this credit card with a total of just shy of $14,000 in interest paid to do that. Now I will say on the credit card piece, this is a little tricky because I'm assuming the minimum payment at all times, and that may not always be the case, but I just had to run with something for this example. So that's the case for both credit cards. The second one, the balance is $5,000, interest rate is 22%. And again, sticking with a minimum payment of 2%, that means you're paying $100 a month. And if you stuck with the minimum payment, it would take you 11 years to pay off, and about $8,700 in interest would be paid in order to do that. And the fourth loan we're trying to consolidate, it started as an unsecured loan for $10,000. It was a 3-year loan and a 12% APR. The monthly payment is $332.14. I'm assuming we've already paid 12 months into it, so the remaining balance is right at $8,000. Remaining interest due is $915.59, and so far we've paid just over $1,000 in interest. And by the way, when I say remaining interest due, I mean if you follow the payment schedule, that's exactly how much interest would be left that would accumulate on the loan before it was paid off. So altogether, these monthly payments added up comes to be $1,115.46. So if we consolidate this, and I'm using what would be a realistic example here, I've done this often, but a HE loan or home equity loan is similar to a mortgage, but it's usually on a second lien position, but it's like a shorter term second mortgage on a home. I mean, it could be a first mortgage if the home is paid in full, but either way, it's a fixed term loan where you use the equity to use equity for collateral. So I'm assuming $38,000, so I rounded up to get all of our debts in there. It's a 10-year loan at 7% APR. So the total monthly payment on this will be $441.21. So if we compare this monthly payment with this monthly payment, the savings is $674.25 a month. If we took the entire term to pay this loan out, it would be $14,945.47 in interest. So compare this interest number to the interest numbers up top, added up, your total savings in interest would be $9,281.16. And I decided to take this a step further. I mean, even this, just based on the interest savings and on the monthly payment savings, it already makes sense in those, and it would simplify it. So it meets the cash flow goal, it meets the interest savings goal, and it meets the simplification goal. But let's say with this savings that we had, this $674, if we turn around and apply this as an extra payment on this loan, then what it will do is it would pay this loan off in 39 months, and then an additional interest savings will be $10,455.90. Now I will say this about adding the savings as part of the loan payment on a consolidation loan. It's great in theory, but it's not likely in practice. And what I mean is, it sounds really good to talk about doing this, but in a realistic sense, month in and month out, most people are going to find a reason to not apply this to pay off a debt faster. They're going to do something else with it. This is a vacation fund. This is a, maybe go into more debt fund. I don't know, but it's a great theory, but just from my experience, that's all it is a theory. Most people would not apply this. But still, I wanted to tell you what it would look like if you had the discipline to apply this full savings and keep, what that would do is it would keep this payment the case for this loan, but it would pay it off a lot faster, and you'd have a lot of interest savings comparing the two. For the second example, I'm going to look at consolidating two auto loans. So in this example, auto loan number one started as a $40,000 loan for 6 years and at 6% APR. The monthly payment $662.92. I'm going to assume 60 payments have already been made, and the remaining balance is $7,702.37. So there's only 1 year left on this loan. The remaining interest on those last year is $952.70. And we have a second auto loan that started out as a $30,000 loan for 5 years at 7%. The monthly payment here, $594.04. 36 payments have already been made, The remaining balance is just north of $13,000. So there's another 2 years left on this. And the remaining interest, if we take it to the full term, is $989.01. So between the two, the total remaining balance is just shy of $21,000. The total remaining interest that's going to be paid is $19,041.73. And the total monthly payment combined is $12,056.96. So those are my assumptions. Now, what if we consolidate this loan into an unsecured loan? So let's take a look at that. So I rounded up. I'm just going to say we do an unsecured loan for $21,000 for 5 years, and the rate's going to be 9%. So this is a realistic one. The rate is typically going to be higher on an unsecured loan than it is on an auto loan. But let's say this person's motivation is cash flow. So this is what it looks like. So this term, the monthly payment would be $435.93. So a total savings of a monthly payment of $821.03. So a big savings there on the cash flow if that's your goal. Now the reason it's so different is because when you amortize a loan, you look at what the starting numbers are. So if you're looking at this going, oh, wait a minute, the auto loans are close to being paid off, but the payment doesn't change the whole time. It's based on what it was in the beginning. So the payment is still high based on a low balance. But then if you take out a new unsecured loan where your starting balance is less than where you started on each individual auto loan by themselves, then of course it makes sense that the monthly payment is lower. So that's the reason for that. But if we went through the full term on this unsecured loan, the total interest paid would be $5,155.53. That is an interest increase of about $3,200 versus what we would have paid here. And so if interest savings is part of the goal, we would have failed in this example. We would have paid a lot more in interest over the course of the loan. But let's take it a step further. Let's say with this $821 that we're saving per month, if we turn around and apply that to the payment, then the total interest paid on this new loan would be $1,521.50, which is actually less than our original number by $420.23. So only if we add this additional savings back into the payment will we have any savings here. But again, as I said in my last example, I think that's a good theory, but realistically, almost nobody, if anybody, is going to really apply that $821 extra per month for the entire term of the loan. It just more than likely wouldn't happen. But if cash flow is your goal, you would have achieved it here. If interest savings is your goal, you would not have achieved it. So when you look at examples on whether or not to consolidate debt, you need to consider those things together and see if it makes sense for you. So just using these two examples, I wanted to show you what I look for if it makes sense on whether or not to do a debt consolidation loan. If you're looking at cash flow as your reason, by all means do a comparison the way that I did it. Go to amortization calculator, calculate your new loan, what that would be versus what you're paying now. You add everything up and compare apples to apples that way. If your goal is interest savings, then what you have to do, again using the amortization calculator, you can figure out how much you've already paid and how much is left to pay versus how much you would pay in interest on the new loan. Now the amortization calculator that I have posted in the description will pretty much lay out year by year how much you are paying in interest, so it should be some pretty quick math there. But one thing to consider in that is when you do an amortized loan, the beginning of the loan the interest is going to be higher and it gets worked down percentage wise as you pay the loan down. So in the beginning there's a lot more interest paid versus principal. As you work your way down there's a lot more principal paid than interest. And so if you take one that's already in its second half of the life of the loan and then pay that off with a new loan, your new loan is going to have a higher interest payment. It's going to start over. You're going to have the higher interest in the beginning just like you did the first time around. I think a lot of people miss that point when they look at debt consolidation loans. I'm not saying it's a terrible thing. I'm just saying it's something to consider. So don't only look at the cash flow. I mean, there are situations where cash flow is the key driver and the only driver, and that's fine. You know your situation, but for those that want more of a bigger picture, I wanted to highlight that for sure. And of course, a debt consolidation loan is definitely a much simpler loan than having 4 or 5 or more debts to pay in one. But I would caution you against using it just as a simplification piece. if your cash flow is not going to improve or if your interest is not going to improve as well. So I hope this helps. There's a lot of numbers in here, I know. Hopefully nobody glazed over. I'm a numbers geek, and so I love this kind of stuff. I actually run through that kind of detail when I'm looking at whether or not it makes sense. So use it for your loan considerations going forward. Again, it's case by case. I'm not saying debt consolidation loans are good or bad. It just depends on your situation. Sometimes I would definitely encourage it. Sometimes I would say, wait a minute, you don't want to do this. I'll just throw in one more example. I've seen a lot of people ask about refinancing a mortgage, and they may have taken out a mortgage a few years ago when mortgage rates were 3% or less. If I ask that question now in June of 23, it makes no sense to refinance a mortgage because you'd probably pay more than double the interest rate. And so it would be very unusual for that to make sense. I mean, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it would very likely not make sense. With all that said, I hope this helps. By all means, go forth and do things that you want to do to either get out of debt, raise your credit score. Check out my other videos where I talk about these things. I hope this helps. I want you to be better with your money, and I hope you use this as a resource to better your financial future. Thank you.